So, Travis, Kentucky and Oklahoma, in the wake of West Virginia, tell us what it was like down there.
It was crazy. It was, I think, between 5,000 and 10,000 protesters outside the Capitol in Frankfort on Monday morning.
And what are they asking?
Well, it's a little bit different than West Virginia and Oklahoma, where a lot of it's about compensation. In Kentucky, it's about pensions, first and foremost. On Thursday night, the Kentucky state legislature kind of inserted pension reforms into a public sewage bill, what had previously been a public sewage bill. Passed it just a few hours later. The pension fight's been going on for a long time. Kentucky's public pensions are some of the worst funded in the nation. And Matt Bevin, the Republican governor, and the Republican state legislature has been trying to pass reforms. Most of them opposed by teachers. A lot of them the teachers say are illegal, unconstitutional under Kentucky law because they have a contract and a stipulation in the Kentucky Constitution that says that contract can't just be amended for current teachers. They got most of what they were asking for in the short term. The current teachers don't lose many benefits. A lot of what they called the worst parts are out of this bill, but it switches new hires to more of a 401k system and caps some other benefits and changes some things. And so they're pretty upset.
Are they did they walk out of the classrooms?
They walked out, on Friday morning. So a lot of Kentucky was already on spring break. And Friday morning, they had a sick out, is what they called it. Teachers just called in sick en masse. And I think 26 counties closed schools, including Jefferson County, which is Louisville, and Fayette County, which is Lexington, so the two biggest districts in the state. And then on Monday, I think roughly 90 or so of the counties were on spring break, 90 of the 120 Kentucky counties. The others all closed. So the teachers, there were teachers, I believe, from every county in Kentucky at the rally on Monday morning.
Is it ongoing?
It's sort of lapsed. The legislative session is on break now for 10 days. And with it being spring break, they're kind of waiting and seeing how what Bevin does with the pension bill. There were potential budget cuts that they were protesting. The budget bill, they actually got some wins in, but Bevin has the ability to line item veto and has already sort of indicated that he might veto some of the funding that the legislature put back in that teachers wanted. So they're kind of in a wait and see approach right now. They go back in, I believe, on the 13th. And that's when Bevin will have a window to start vetoing things. So if I talked to an organizer and a teacher last night, and they basically said we're just sort of, waiting to see what happens.
Meanwhile, also in Oklahoma, I think the very first day, the 36,000 teachers walked off the jobs, walked and stormed. They really took over the state capitol, as they did in Kentucky. They took over the state capitol. There was another big rally out in Oklahoma yesterday. Here, Peter, the chant of the teachers in Oklahoma: "Invest in the future."
Invest in the best.
In the best, that's right.
Which is the future.
Which is the future.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then Mary Fallon, the governor of Oklahoma, just listen to this. This is you talk about being clueless or out of step. The wrong message. Here's what she envisions for teachers to be able to do their job and support their family.
No, I hope we could get to the salary to where they could work one, or if they choose, they get a big family, 2 jobs.
Yeah. She wants to get to the point where teachers can get by working 2 jobs. Yeah. Gene?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's another window into the conversation about the classes that voted for Donald Trump. We talk a lot about working class voters, and specifically the white working class that voted for Donald Trump. The reality is teachers are college-educated professionals still dealing with a lot of working class challenges. And I think it reminds us that it's not just these low-income individuals that don't have college degrees that are struggling, trying to figure out what it means to attain the American dream. It's many people with graduate degrees.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point because in Kentucky, I think the teachers have become kind of a symbol of broader working class and especially public state workers, because the other state workers are dealing with these pension changes too. So there were police and firefighters unions and Teamsters unions and Matt Bevin in Kentucky, his first act last year in 2017 was to pass right to work legislation and repeal Kentucky's prevailing wage law. So there was a lot of discussion about that at this protest. It was kind of a, the teachers have become the most potent symbol in a lot of these places. But I think the argument is more about what is it, why can't we make a living in these states anymore? And even beyond that, I mean, there's questions that go to that too about the broader, what they see as dismantling of public education systems across the country.
Yeah, have Mary Fallon drive a taxi cab at night to keep her to feed her family. I mean, that idea that she sees that as a goal, as long as they're only working 2 jobs, so then everything is okay. Now, I didn't have a chance to double check this, but I saw on CBS the other night in Oklahoma that it takes 20 years as a teacher to build under existing system to get up to where you're earning $40,000 a year.
Wow.
I mean, that's just criminal.
But it's believable. I mean, based on what we have seen in terms of salaries nationally, when you think of how low the pay is in some more prosperous communities, it would only make sense that Oklahoma would be even more challenged.
They're 49 among 50 states.
Wow.
I don't know who number 50 is.
Yeah, and you made
Probably
the point.
Mississippi. Yeah.
You made the
probably
point about
Mississippi,
graduate degrees. In Kentucky, if you're a public school teacher, you're required to get a master's degree while you're teaching. You don't have to have it to start, but eventually you have to have a master's degree, and that's out of pocket for most of the teachers. And so, and also when it comes back to the pensions, Kentucky teachers aren't eligible for Social Security. So their pension is their only retirement. I mean, this is a point they stressed over and over and over again, is that if they're
not eligible for Social Security?
But Ray and I both, our jaws just hit the floor.
Yeah.
Really?
Right.
No.
Right. I think there's 13 states where teachers, as part of their pension programs, aren't eligible for Social Security.
Oh, my God.
And so they give 13% of their paycheck to their retirement and healthcare plans for retirement. And if they don't have Social Security, or if these pensions are reduced or they go away, that's not necessarily as big of a problem for current teachers because the pension isn't changing that much for them. But for future teachers that are on a 401k plan with no Social Security to back that up, they're saying the big thing here is we're not going to be able to recruit teachers. In a state where, God bless it, it's my home and I love it, but the public education system is already among probably the bottom 5 in the country. And if you can't recruit teachers, if they're leaving for Ohio or, any other state, it's only going to get even worse.
Yeah, and in no state, I would argue, are teachers really being paid what they deserve.
Right.
Some of them may be able to make a prevailing wage, but look at Oklahoma. I mean, you're a young person in Oklahoma, you're dedicated, you really want to make a life helping others by teaching. Why would you go into it if it takes you 20 years to get up to $40,000 a year?
Yeah, I mean, when you were describing what's happening, I couldn't help but to think about like the colleges of education at these universities trying to recruit students to major in education. That has to be incredibly difficult at this point to encourage people that.
And on top of that, as so many of these teachers have pointed out, remember we had a clip yesterday from a teacher who was saying in her school the kids have to carry their chairs from one classroom to the next because there are not enough chairs. Textbooks with duct tape holding them together year after year.
So
after
if
year.
you don't have textbooks and chairs, should teachers get guns as well now?
Of course. By the way, out of their own pocket, they have to pay for their guns.
I talked to a teacher in Kentucky yesterday in Louisville, which is one of the probably better funded districts in the state.
Yeah.
And he said his school, his business class that he teaches, they haven't gotten new textbooks since 2008. And so he basically doesn't use textbooks anymore because
you're obviously not talking about the economic downturn.
That's insane.
Right. How do you teach American business in 2018 with a 2008 textbook?
You miss a lot.
This I think is a point for Democrats to point to in these elections, because I don't think that the Democrats have done a very good job of taking care of unions and labor and the workforce over the years. They've just sort of taken it for granted that a lot of them are going to vote democratically, and they haven't spoken to those needs. And when you have a place like Kentucky or Oklahoma or West Virginia, which are red states, and you're seeing these uprisings from teachers. Like, the point here is, no, they can't pay the teachers because they've given so many tax cuts to big businesses, oil companies, coal companies in West Virginia. And, like, this is the argument.
They give it away, and then we say we don't have enough money to pay you what you
Kentucky's
deserve.
an interesting point on that, Peter, because
They create the problem.
They created the problem.
A red state for a long time at the federal level, but it was a blue state for even just now in 2016, they lost the legislature completely to Republicans for the first time in a century.
By the way, so was West Virginia.
Right.
West Virginia was a blue
Matt
state.
Bevin's only the second Republican governor Kentucky's had in my lifetime. So, Democrats in the past, when it comes to the pension shortfalls in Kentucky, some of the budget problems, they've been just as big of a problem on this. And, they're just as responsible for a lot of these problems as the Republicans are. I do think in Kentucky right now you have a bunch of teachers running for office, and I think there are a new sort of class of Democrats that are looking at this and saying, something really has to be done. And I think you'd have to be blind, frankly, to look at what happened in Kentucky or even in Oklahoma and West Virginia as the Democratic Party and say, well, we should listen to those people and champion their cause.